Got me a little Sumatra Gayo Mountain coffee this morning. Never heard of it before. It's in those little K-cups. Yes, I drink K-cups from time to time. If I make time, I'll do my fancy espresso, stovetop espresso. But anywho, it's really good. And so I'm having a cup of that in my little Strong First Leadership cup. Day 35, technical day today. Coming to the end of cycle A of microcycle number 2. And I want to talk about skill sequencing. But before I do, I feel like crap today. Today's session, I felt like crap coming in today's session. Not because of the deadlifting, but because of how I poorly planned my day. Okay? So I ended up, luckily, thanks be to God, I had a technical session and not, volume to lift today. Because I ended up doing today's session after jiu-jitsu. So had an hour plus training jiu-jitsu. We got a couple of guys that were preparing for a competition. I believe it was the Austin Open. And so anyway, we pushed pretty hard. Good training cycle, good training. And today, for whatever reason, I got my ass kicked, smeared all over the mat today. That happens. Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. And that's what I love about jiu-jitsu. That's what I love about barbell deadlifting. And I have a topic I'm going to cover tomorrow that's going to really piss a lot of people off, but it's okay. And it's based on a little conversation that we had going on in our private chat, in our Better Man private chat group. But it's okay because sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail, and that's just the way it is. So let me see, from 2015 to 2017, so it's like a 2-year period, I was competing in the TSC, Tactical Strength Challenge, right? And so it's 2 events a year, right? You got one in the fall, and then you got one in the spring, and then one in the fall. And so we launched our first one, 2015, spring of 2015. And the reason I started hosting that was I wanted our students to have a different focus in their training than just weight loss, right? Like weight loss is great, losing fat is great, but sometimes, there's other aspects to your training. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay attention to how you're eating or anything like that, which I'm also going to slam dunk tomorrow. So I just wanted them to focus on something else, and because there's this concept, and it's true, right? That the form follows the function, right? So if you train like an athlete, you're going to look like an athlete, okay? Obviously, you're going to eat like an athlete too. Well, that might not be true because a lot of athletes eat like crap, and it's just because of how active they are and how much they train, they're able to kind of overcome some of those bad habits. Because I believe it was like Ocho Cinco would eat like McDonald's every day. But I wanted them to focus on something else than just the weight, right? And so I was like, you know what? We're going to start focusing on our skills. We're going to focus on, deadlift, snatching. And guess what? If you want to knock out pull-ups, you got to lose some weight. So the form follows the function. So if you're going to train like an athlete, by default, you're probably going to have to make better choices and eat like an athlete, right? And, man, it was great. We had many people just really look forward to it. Everybody knew every 6 months we were going to be on a training cycle. Everybody had to start dialing in what they were eating, and it was great. We had people lose weight. We had people do things that they'd never done before. We had people that could barely hang onto a bar, like a dead hang, barely hang onto a bar, go into doing full, flexed arm hangs, and people that could barely do flexed arm hangs going into full chin-ups, and then eventually full weighted tactical pull-ups. It was amazing. It was amazing to see. So anywho, I'm training the TSC, and I always did the elite division. I don't know. I always have, I'm not trying to boast or show off, but it's just, I don't know. In my life, you can ask my wife. She laughs about this. Anything that I'm going to do, I always ask myself, well, what's the hardest thing there is? what's the most advanced, what's the hardest thing that I could do? Whatever that is, I want to do that. Right? Like I've never done one of those like obstacle courses. What is it? Like the Tough Mudder or like the Spartan race, I think is supposed to be like the hardest one. But I can see that if I ever, for whatever reason, didn't like myself and decided, hey, I want to do this Spartan race, I would want to do the hardest, longest, most brutal obstacle one there is. That's just the way I've always been. So anywho, I was like, you know what, TSE, Elite Division, yes, I want to do that, right? So the Elite Division, and this is just like, I'll give you some general overview of what it is. So the Tactical Strength Challenge, what it is you're doing, it's 3 events, right? You're training all 3 disciplines of the Strong First system. So kettlebell snatches, right? So kettlebell, body weight, tactical pull-ups, or flexed arm hang, depending on lady or gentleman. So you got the body weight component, and then we have barbell deadlift. Okay, so barbell, and so there's a trade-off between many of these disciplines, right? So for the deadlift, the bigger guy is going to have the advantage, right? As my friend and my brother, BJJ black belt brother Jimmy Lugo would say, weight moves weight, brother. Weight moves weight, right? So the bigger you are, more than likely the more weight you're going to pull, right? You see this in powerlifting. You see Hafthor Bjornsson, and then you see these monster guys, right? Brian Shaw pulling thousands plus, right? But in relation to their body weight, they're barely pulling double body weight, right? Maybe just a little over body weight, probably barely 2.5 times body weight, but they're still like the maximum strength. They're still stronger, right? Which actually pretty crazy. If you guys haven't heard, you can look them up here on YouTube and on Instagram. If you are not aware, there is a guy who's getting ready to shatter the all-time deadlift record. And his name's Jamal Browner. This dude is phenomenal. He's a sumo puller, so yeah, sumo pullers. In training, he's already pulled, I believe, with straps. He pulls hook grip too, by the way, which I'm slowly learning. It's painful and I don't like it, but you know what? Sometimes we got to do things that we don't like, right? He pulled with straps 1,065, and this guy is about 240, 250 pounds. Insane. So in relation to his body weight, pound for pound, he's the strongest guy in the world when it comes to the deadlift, right? So he's obviously, I'm pretty sure he's going to try to pull that like as an official world record, which you can use straps like, in strongman. He would have to compete strongman to be able to use the straps. But in powerlifting, I believe his best is 971, I believe. The guy's a freak. You should look him up. He's really good. Anyway, so the barbell deadlift is max. So you're testing maximum strength here. And the big guy or gal has the advantage there, right? They're going to pull more weight. Then you've got and then there's a trade-off. You've got the body weight, portion, right? So you've got flexed arm hang for beginner ladies. And I want to say intermediate ladies is body weight tactical pull-ups. And advanced or the elite division would be, I believe, tactical pull-ups with 8 kilos hanging off your waist, I believe it is. For the gentlemen, for the men, it's tactical pull-ups, bodyweight pull-ups for both beginner and intermediate. And then the elite division was tactical pull-ups for the 10 kilo kettlebell. So that's the bodyweight portion. And as I said, there's a trade-off. So the lighter guy, leaner guy is going to have the advantage there over the big guy, right? So there's a good trade-off there. But then you have the kettlebell snatch, which just destroys everybody equally. Doesn't matter what how big or how lean you are, right? And you got your classes, right? So beginner men is 20 kilo snatching, intermediate is 24 kilo snatching, and then you got the elite division is 32 kilo snatching, right? And you do let's see here, you do deadlift first, then you do tactical pull-up, and then after that you do snatching to finish. And so the reason why I tell you all this is because I was prepping for the TSC, and it was either 2015 or 2016, I can't remember. And I had 100+ snatches that I had to do to close out the week session, and I had to do it at 28. So the protocol that I was running was because I was going to be snatching the 32, and I made one attempt at the snatch test with 32, and I got like 80. No, I got 89 reps, 84 reps, maybe something like that. I'll link the video up here in the corner. But I got to like 84 or 89, something like that. Anyway, that was the first time, and it was just kind of like on the whim, like, you know what, I'm just gonna try it out, right? That was an eye opener. So then, anyway, I'm planning for the TSS. I've never officially done a snatch test with a 32. So I was the protocol I was doing. It's part of the not the Better Man Blueprint. It's actually included in the Snatch Blueprint program that we have. And if you're interested in the Snatch Blueprint, it's a full-blown course on how to learn the snatch. I'll put that in the description below. And it's called Plan 240. And so what it is you have two bells you're training with. You got your speed bell, and then you got your strength bell, right? And so actually I used a 32 and a 36. Yeah, I needed a bell heavier than the 32. So I was doing my speed bell, right? My endurance bell was the 32. And then my strength bell was the 36. And I was just snatching twice a week. I was deadlifting anywhere from 2 to 4 days a week, just depending on the volume that I had scheduled. And so I didn't plan my day right. And I ended up having to do my 100+ snatches with, actually I think it was just 100 snatches, with 32 kilo after like 2 hours of jiu-jitsu training. This was back in like 2015, 2016. And it sucked. Like, I learned a big lesson there. A big lesson. And that was to not do any sort of alactic, explosive, work after a glycolytic training session. Just something intuitively told me, yeah, you know what? You shouldn't plan your training sessions this way. And that's when eventually when I came across, I went through the first strong endurance course with Pavel. And inside there, he gave some parameters around like how to train multiple training sessions in a day, right? By energy system. And so basically, like in the event, you've got strength work, right? Or ballistic work planned with glycolytic or aerobic based training, right? You want to complete your sessions in a specific order, right? So you've got three energy systems. Okay, you've got alactic, right? This is you could consider this like anaerobic, right? So this is your barbell deadlifts. This is your kettlebell ballistic exercises, your swings, your cleans, your snatches, sprinting, and other power training methods, right? Essentially, there's no burn. The goal is no burn here, right? So when I'm doing these deadlifts, there is no muscle burn, zero muscle burn whatsoever. If you're doing your kettlebell ballistic work, right, you don't want any burn. Now, there will be a glycolytic peaking phase, but that's way beyond what I want to cover today. But that's essentially your power training energy system, right? This is something that you can maintain maximum output for about 15 seconds. After the 15-second mark, you start tapping into your glycolytic energy system, and you can do this up to 7 minutes. So you can think of like a jiu-jitsu round, right? Jiu-jitsu rounds are anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. That is a pure, pretty much glycolytic session, round, bout, right? So in terms of like strength training, glycolytic training would be kettlebell complexes, traditional bodybuilding, right? Jiu-jitsu, MMA, and other pretty much high-intensity trainings. High intense, very small rest periods, right? Very acidic, a lot of muscle burn, okay? That's what represents this glycolytic pathway. And by the way, speaking of, just, a side note, I often get, questions from guys or comments that I see or things, just stuff that I see and hear. And this is a real thing, by the way. This isn't like someone that says, oh, I often get asked all the time, which is usually BS. No, I literally see this all the time, and I get feedback from like this from guys that do our programs and whatnot. Is, man, I just can't do glycolytic work. Like, my body just doesn't like that work. Well, newsflash, the body is it's the most complex and most amazing organism ever created by God, right? It's adaptable. You can adapt to it. But here's the thing. You've got to eat in a way. If you're not eating the right way, you got to know how to. This is exact thing that I cover with my men's program in the Better Man Blueprints. I show these guys how to pair the specific energy system that they're training with a very specific eating strategy. Okay? And so if you're feeling like crap during a like glycolytic focused training, kettlebell complexes, bodybuilding, like high intensity type stuff, very small rest periods, more than likely it's because you're not eating the right way. You're not getting in enough carbs. If you're following more of like a, I don't know, I guess paleo or a like keto based like lifestyle where you're getting very little carbs, yeah, it's going to suck. Your body's not going to like it because that glycolytic pathway requires glucose, right? Carbs. So if you're going to follow something like kettlebell complexes, bodybuilding, jiu-jitsu, whatever, you got to be getting those dang carbs in, okay? So that system is very acidic, right? A lot of muscle burn there. Then you've got your aerobic system, right? Jogging, running below the anabolic, running below the anaerobic threshold, right? Like sub 85-ish%. Light skill practice work like I did today, right? Some, like jiu-jitsu drills, just stuff like, jump rope, little light jog, that type of stuff, right? Aerobic training. So that usually kicks in after the 7-minute mark, and you can do that for days. You can do that for days on end without stopping, okay? And that pathway is, no, I won't get into that. I'll save that for something else. So anyway, here's a couple of ways you can pair your training together in the event, like me today, where you ended up doing something like jiu-jitsu, something that was glycolytic, and then you got to do strength work, alactic, more power-focused training. So, for instance, like if you got both of these together, you would want to do your alactic training, right? Your power-based type stuff before aerobic training, right? So let's say I had a run scheduled for today. I would want to do my barbell lifts first, deadlifts first, right? Or my kettlebell presses or whatever, snatches, whatever. I would want to do that first and then finish with a run, a light jog, right? I would want to do my power training, barbell deadlifts, all that. I would want to do that before glycolytic training. So I should have gotten this stuff done before jiu-jitsu, which is why I felt like crap, right? Glycolytic work. Let's say you got glycolytic work scheduled, right? You're going to be doing kettlebell complexes, or you got jiu-jitsu scheduled, or any kind of high-intensity type training with very little rest periods. Your second session would need to be like a low-volume aerobic type training, right? More recovery-focused. How you don't want to plan your training is glycolytic work, right? Kettlebell complexes, BJJ, high-intensity interval training with low rest periods. You don't want to do that and then try to do some kind of strength-focused endurance and some kind of strength-focused barbell deadlift type stuff. It's not going to go well, right? And so this is exactly how I ended up doing today's session. Had jiu-jitsu first, didn't plan my morning right, and had to do deadlifts after. It sucked, but like I said before, the iron doesn't care about your feelings, so I had to get it done, right? And it actually turned out to be a pretty good session. So another way you don't want to plan your training is high-volume aerobic training. Like you go out for, a pretty tough run. You don't want to do glycolytic work after that. You're not going to like yourself, all right? So I just wanted to throw that out there. That's essentially how today's day kind of went. Now, skill sequencing. Right, so I've been practicing with this something that I call progression chain ladders. And it's part of this, skill sequencing where essentially it's what I call skill sequencing, right? So there are a lot of people are familiar with chains in terms of repetitions, right? So if we're talking about like kettlebells, you've got here's how you could run a chain, right? So let's say you've got like swing, clean, press, and squat, right? And you got to do 5 repetitions of each one. Well, you wanted to run that as a chain. It would be 1 swing, 1 clean, 1 press, 1 squat, and then repeat 1 clean, 1 swing, 1 clean, 1 press, 1 squat, and you'd run that 5 times. That would be a chain. Another example of a chain is just good old-fashioned clean and press. Clean, press, clean, press, clean, press 5 times. That's an example of a chain, right? Clean, jerk, exact same thing. But there are also chains that are exercise-based, right? At least that's how I run them, right? When I'm working on some skills. And I call this skill sequencing, right? So this may not even exist. This may just be something that I've intuitively kind of always done. Again, every time I have a technical day, I'm incorporating little things like this. And it helps me to keep deadlifting every day. It's all mostly, again, recovery focus and hence the name, skill focus, right? Strength is a skill. And so I call these skill sequencing. So here's an example of like what I did today, right? So, first let me give you an example of some other skill sequences. So you got some other skill sequences. Let's say we're talking about kettlebell, right? So a skill sequence could be 1 arm swing, 1 arm high pull, 1 arm snatch, right? You're sequencing these skills together, right? So if you do 1 swing, 1 high pull, 1 snatch, and then that would be a chain because you're doing 1 of each, and then you repeat for 3 or 5 times, right? So you're sequencing the skills, right, in a chain, and you're also chaining the volume, right? Another example of a skill sequence would be 1 arm plank, right? You do a 1 arm. This is actually what we have some of our students going through at Hardstyle this week. 1 arm plank, 5 power breaths per side. Then immediately into 1 arm deadlift, 5 times per side. Then we have 1 arm swings, 5 per side. So we got a little bit of a medley there. We're running the exercise, that skill sequence is a progression chain, right? It's a chain sequence, but then the volume is complex, right? Because you're doing 5 of each, 5 of all the repetitions for each exercise before moving on to the next exercise, right? So these are examples of skill sequencing, right? And so in today's skill sequence, I'm always working on that wedge. That is the magic there. I am convinced that is the secret. If I had to create a product that said the secret to, the wedge is the secret. It is the secret to a bigger and stronger deadlift without having to train like a powerlifter. And so I'm always drilling that thing. So what I did today is I did wedge 1 or 2 times. My goal, I only worked up to 415, right? My goal was to just break the ground, wedge. Then wedge to the knee is what I call a tactical rack pull, right? So if you think about a rack pull, the weight is somewhere around like shin to knee area. So pull, pause there for a brief moment, hold it, and then lock out the hips. And then I also did wedge to, again, that deadlift pause, put the barbell down, then wedge, deadlift pause, then lock out, and then full deadlift. So what I'm doing there is I'm working on those weak points that I have, right? I'm hitting those weak points because for many lifters, if you're going to get into barbell deadlifting, you're going to find one of those weak points, right? Your weak point may be breaking the ground, and that's pretty common for the sumo. So the sumo is slower. Like when you break the ground, it's a lot slower from the start, right? Like if you can break the ground with sumo, your chances of locking it out are extremely high, right? So it's a slow start, but it's got a fast finish because it's more hip dominant, right? So it's going to have a slow start, fast finish. If you're pull conventional, conventional has a fast start, but a slow finish. Many people struggle with that last lockout piece, right? So if you can break the ground with sumo, more than likely you're going to pull it. So that could, but if you can't break the ground, if you're having a hard time breaking the ground with sumo, you want to work on getting good at that wedge. Because if you can break the ground with a wedge, just the wedge by itself, you're going to pull that sucker, right? Which is why in this I'm always drilling that. I actually had in an upcoming video I'm going to share, I had a personal best. I broke the ground wedge with 230 kilos, so 505. Broke the ground, just paused, right? And then finished the lockout. Prior to that, I pulled, my best was 210 kilos, so 465. Prior to that was 440. Right, so I'm now getting to a point where I can break the ground with the wedge only at 505. That's amazing. I definitely feel like I'm onto something here with how I'm programming this, and of course with this skill sequence. And so I was just training all those weak points, right, of the deadlift. And again, this is a way to improve your deadlift without having to train assistance exercises, because it's the deadlift, right? Like I see people do these like deficit deadlifts, and I see people doing rack pulls, and hey, you know what? They may or may not work, right? But here's the I would probably say that the deficit pull has more carryover than rack pull. I don't think rack pull does anything really. I think it's just an ego lift. It's just a pure ego lift. And the reason why I say that is because you're not actually pulling you're still not pulling the weight from the ground. You're still not pulling the weight from the ground. It's elevated. So it's going to be easy. The deficit will probably have a much better carryover because you're pulling the weight from the floor, right? And that's the key thing. To take your deadlift to the next level, you need to pull from the ground, right? And no touch and go bouncing the weights. Like if you've got repetition scheduled, pull, come down, reset, re-wedge, go again. That is what builds your deadlift. And so I'm just training. And, every time I did this sequence, where did I start? From the ground. Wedge. Wedge to the knee with a pause. Put it back down. Wedge to the knee with a pause. Full lockout. Then full deadlift. Right? So I'm hitting all those weak points. I'm hitting the floor, which is, that's the hardest part for sumo is breaking the ground. I'm hitting that. I'm owning that. I can break the ground. Then I'm pulling mid shin to knee. That's that. Usually some people, when they get stuck there, right? They get stuck there more than likely. I want to say it's like your back. You're like your back that's really weak, right? And so I'm just training that, really hitting that lower back. Then getting it up to the knees, pausing, and then working on finishing with my hips, right? And so that's skill sequencing, right? That's what I call skill sequencing. This is stuff that I've practiced ever since I've been in the deadlift game. I've been practicing and in the deadlift game since 2013. So what is that? Man, that's already like 9 years. I can't believe that. 9 years ago, I sucked at deadlift. I still feel like I suck, but my goal is to get better every day, right? And so that's what I wanted to share with you, man. If you've got multiple training sessions scheduled in one day, make sure you get in that power training, deadlift, snatching, etc., done before you do any kind of glycolytic work, right? If you're going to be doing complexes, if you're going to be doing jiu-jitsu afterward, if you're going to go for a really hard run, right? If you're going to get a really hard run in, get that glycolytic work in first, okay? Get that glycolytic work in first before you do any kind of power-based training. And that's and you'll notice that you'll have a better training session. And for goodness sakes, if you're doing glycolytic work, get those damn carbs in too. You can thank me later. But that's it, man. Deadlift, progression, chain ladders as part of something I call skill sequencing. So if you're liking the videos, and you want to help me spread the word, feel free to share this video. Give it a like, give it a thumbs up, whatever. I don't know how any of that crap works, but I think it helps these videos. Give it a share. I'll drop the Snatch Blueprint in the comment section if you want to grab a copy of that. I'll also, let me see what else. Oh, if you want to learn how to do this dang deadlift thing, right? If you want to know how to do this deadlift thing, grab a free copy of my deadlift blueprint. Inside, principle-based, 3 plays to take your deadlift to the next level. If you've never deadlift before, Or if you're a pretty experienced deadlifter and you've been kind of stuck, it'll help you out. All right. And tomorrow, I got important, exciting announcement for tomorrow. So be sure to tune in tomorrow, where I'm probably going to piss a few people off, but it's okay. And I got a special announcement, right? That's it, man. Went longer than I thought today. Talk to you tomorrow. Peace.